Tony, this is a conversation I look forward to most every single year, right before the draft. Speaking to the best draft insider in the business, a man who makes the draft a year-long interest for those of us who slightly obsess about it. How do you find this period of time, a week before the draft begins? Presumably, it's a very busy time for you.
Actually, it's not as busy as, let's say, February and March, because the busiest time, the craziest time of year is March, because I'm getting I got to do tons of reports. I'm finishing up the reports, and it's pro day month. And, you know, with pro day month, sometimes there's 6, 7 pro days going on in a single day. So it can be out of control. Now it's sort of a waiting game, because this past weekend, you know, you had 3 holidays. You had Easter, you had Passover, you had Ramadan, and most of the franchise offices were closed. So now teams are just finishing up their final draft meetings. And tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it'll be just make phone calls and see what breaks, see what happens, try and get as much updated information. I mean, the boards and everything are just about complete. The reports are out there. It's just a matter of, you know, what is the latest breaking news across the league, which will start to come out later this week.
At this time of year, Tony, there's kind of 2 things that excite me the most when I'm on Twitter. And that is, you know, when Adam Schefter posts something that's got a picture of Russell Wilson and says breaking news underneath, and that was pretty interesting. But also it's when Tony Pauline tweets something, you know, there's going to be some good information here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got for us over the next few days. But I have to ask, have you heard anything on the Seahawks, you know, in terms of what their plans may be? What is the chatter around the league regarding Seattle?
Well, the chatter is they're going to try and trade down and get extra selections. I mean, you know, they hopped into the top 10 with the trade for Russell Wilson. The thing about the Seahawks is you never know. I mean, it always seems that they're going one direction, and at the last minute when they're, you know, they make their choice, they swerve in a direction that no one really knew about. I mean, we've been saying for the longest time, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and they never seem to take offensive linemen. Anyway, so the word right now, the word that I've been hearing is that they're going to try and trade down. Whether that's possible, who knows? We'll find out more later this week, and ultimately a week from tomorrow.
If they move, let's say, into the middle of the first round, who are some of the players that would provide good value in your mind that kind of fit what they need, which is quite a lot of things right now?
You know, I think an offensive lineman like Tyler Smith is their type of player. If they want to go offensive tackle, they'd have to move into the 20s. The big offensive tackle from Tulsa, who I believe is going to be a late first-round choice. He's a guy that people feel you can start off at guard, and then you can, as he develops, into a tackle. You know, if they move into the mid-first round, are they looking at a quarterback there? Are they looking at a Malik Willis type there, or a Matt Corral that they could develop? I think the edge rushers will be off the board. I think maybe a cornerback like a Trent McDuffie out of Washington would also be a consideration, depending on how far they trade down. If they're able to trade down at all, I don't think there's going to be a huge market in the top 10 for teams that are, you know, looking to make a move, a la say what the Chicago Bears did last year.
And when you sort of look at the make with the 8, let's say that they have to stay at 9, you know, what can we expect in the first 8 picks? Is it going to be we see the 4 pass rushers go early? Because I think a lot of Seahawks fans, when the trade was made with Russ Wilson, they were kind of hoping a good pass rusher is going to be there at number 9. But are they going to be gone, the top 4? And everyone knows who the top 4 are by now. 2 or 3 offensive linemen, a Sauce Gardner, maybe a receiver. You know, what is that, the first 8 going to look like, do you think?
I think all 4 pass rushers, the being Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Jermaine Johnson, will be off the board. I think the 3 top offensive linemen, Neal Ikiakwanu and Charles Cross of Mississippi State, will be off the board. You know, I think Ahmad Gardner should be off the board, but what is Atlanta going to do at 8? I mean, they could take a receiver. Kayvon Thibodeau could fall, depending on what the teams think of him. I think he's ripe for the Houston Texans. That's a good spot. If he's there at 9, I think that's a great pick for Seattle. I think in the best case scenario for Seattle, one of those receivers fits in at number 8. Because if a receiver fits in at number 8, it means that Gardner could fall to them. It means that Thibodeau could fall to him. It means outside shot that one of the offensive linemen falls to him. If one of the receivers like Garrett Wilson is selected by the Falcons, I think the Seahawks will be staring at a good player that fits a need.
And I don't want to throw other people's mocks at you, Tony, but there's kind of like in the last 24 hours, there's been a series of mocks that have suddenly had Evan Neal at number 9. ESPN have published 3 mocks in a row now that have Evan Neal at number 9. And then NFL.com had one yesterday, which had him going number 8. For fans who are getting their hopes up that Evan Neal is going to potentially make it to number 9, what is the reality of that potential?
I think, first of all, where does Ike Ekwonu go? I mean, I'm hearing potentially Houston number 3, and I know for a fact he's in the conversation with the Jets at 4. If Ekwonu goes with one of those picks, I don't think there's any way that Evan Neal lasts to the Seattle Seahawks selection, because the Giants will take Evan Neal, and I think the Carolina Panthers are going to take Charles Cross. I think it's a very slim possibility that does happen. He'd be great value at number 9. Again, if you're a Seahawks fan and you're hoping for that, you want Ekwonu to be either the 3rd or the 4th player off the board. And the Giants, I'm sorry, you want the pass rushers to go for top 4, because then the Giants would be sitting there at 5 to take Ekwonu, Carolina Panthers 6. Charles Cross, and then I think there's a chance that Evan Neal falls to the Seahawks at 9.
One of the players who's had a really meteoric rise is Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah.
What kind of range are we seeing for him? Because I think initially he was one of the players who maybe people were thinking, well, Seattle might be able to get him, might be able to trade down and get him, and now it looks as if he's well out of range. Now, where's he going to go, do you think?
And the reason is he had a good senior season after transferring from Georgia to Florida State. He had an outstanding Senior Bowl. They couldn't block him, and he has a good combine. So people are looking at this guy as, someone who's an outstanding pass rusher. And before the league went quarterback crazy and started reaching for quarterbacks a half a round before they should have gone, it was the impact defensive player that was highly coveted come NFL draft time. The impact defensive player, left tackles and cornerbacks, and that's what Jermaine Johnson is. If pass rushers go 1, 2, 3, I think Jermaine Johnson is 4th off the board to the New York Jets, because the Jets are in desperate need of a pass rusher. They haven't solved that problem since John Abraham left for free agency. If he somehow slides, I could see the Giants maybe taking him at number 5 if they don't 5 or 7. I think it's going to be a real tough haul for him to fall to number 9. Where the Seahawks are.
How does the league view Trevor Penning as he goes into this draft?
I mean, there's been some chatter about him going to Seattle at 9. He is a big, tough, nasty offensive tackle. He is hands down he solidified himself as the number 4 tackle in this draft after the guys that I just mentioned. Everybody knows him, or most people know him from the Senior Bowl, where he was trying to bury people's heads into the ground every single play. Probably went over the top with that. But when you watch him, he's always been a real good offensive tackle. Even though it's a lower level of competition, I suggest to people, who are interested and want to find out more about him, watch the Iowa State film. Because while Iowa State has a terrific pass rusher, a guy by the name of Will Daniels, who's going to be an early pick in the 2023 draft, and Penning did a good job. I mean, he's big, he's fundamentally sound. We saw his nastiness at the Senior Bowl, but he's also methodical. I don't know that he's going to be able to handle the left tackle spot in the NFL. I like him much better at right tackle with his run blocking prowess, and the fact that he doesn't have great range off the edge. He's not a real mobile guy. That's the way I like my left tackles. But I think he's a guy who is going to be starting quickly into his rookie season. And I think he's got all the tools to have a long career as an NFL starter.
A year ago, we saw Elijah Vera Tucker go number 14 overall. Jets traded up for him, Tony. Is it possible that teams could view Zion Johnson in that, maybe not necessarily as high as number 14, but in that same similar kind of range?
Is it possible? Absolutely. I don't know that it's probable. I mean, listen, how many people thought that Chris Lindstrom was going to be a top 15 pick, 3 or 4 years ago, a former Boston College offensive lineman, and he's panned out real well. I mean, I think the range for Zion Johnson is probably more 18 to 25. Could he get into that middle section and pick around 14, 15? I mean, sure, anything's possible. He's got great versatility. Was a successful left tackle at Boston College, then moved into guard and was terrific this year at guard, played some center during the Senior Bowl. I mean, a lot of people were surprised that Zion Johnson bypassed the 2022 draft, took that extra year of eligibility offered to players by the NCAA, but it's worked out for him because he's checked all the boxes and he's shown a lot of improvement. So I don't think it's going to happen, but it absolutely is a possibility.
What do you make of this quarterback class, Tony? There's been a lot said about it. How would you assess it now that we're a week away?
I'm always very conservative on the quarterbacks, and these guys just don't do it for me. They have some upside. Look at Malik Willis, you look at Matt Corral, you look at Carson Strong. I mean, these are guys with high upside, but also a lot of risk. These are guys that are going to need a lot of work on their game, before they're truly NFL ready. You look at Kenny Pickett, comes off a terrific senior season. I love when quarterbacks have great final years on the college field before they enter the draft. He's done that. I don't know if he's a true franchise quarterback or if he's a game manager for the next level. Plus, he's got the small hands. He had the hands that were 8 1/8 inches at the combine and was another 1/8 of an inch larger during his pro day. And that does matter. I mean, if you were at Senior Bowl practices on Wednesday in the pouring rain, the ball was coming out funny. So, I mean, I like Kenny Pickett. I just don't think he's a guy that's going to carry an offense on his shoulders at the next level. Desmond Ridder, he's got all the physical skills. He's a smart guy, but the accuracy really concerns me. And I'm not talking about statistical accuracy, I'm talking about the pass placement. You watch Desmond Ridder throw the ball, receivers are always leaving their feet. They're adjusting backwards to catch the passes. He misses wide open receivers. And that's something that can be very tough to teach. Sam Howell's a solid quarterback, but he's got limitations. He's got a decent arm. He was one of the most consistent passers at the Senior Bowl. Was not good in 2021, but when you watch the film, it was not as bad as everyone made it out to be. But he's small, he's not a pocket passer, and he's not a super mobile guy. So you've got limitations with Sam Howell.
And then, with Carson Strong, clearly very talented.
Yeah.
Clearly also bothered by the knee. Where do you expect him to go? Because I suspect without the knee issue, we could be talking about him we'd be talking about him a lot more than we perhaps have been over the last few months.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think Carson Strong has had a good lead up to the draft. I mean, I was one of the first ones at Carson Strong, and 2 years ago, I predicted that he would be the next quarterback from the Mountain West to be a first-round pick. The problem with Carson Strong is twofold. Number one, that offense in Nevada really didn't develop him as a passer, and his game seemed to level off. He never really improved. He never really went from thrower to passer. I mean, he's got a huge arm. He's one of the best arm talents we've seen at the quarterback position in the draft for a long, long time. But he seems too happy or too content with just trying to chuck the ball down the field as far as he can, rather than develop an array and an arsenal of passes. So he's got the size. The knee is going to be an issue for some teams, as I've been reporting at Pro Football Network literally since October. I think the biggest concern, or my biggest concern with Carson Strong, is after watching him perform as a redshirt freshman in Nevada when he took over for a guy, the starter who was injured, and then the starter eventually transferred because he realized he was never getting his job back from Carson Strong. He just never improved his game as a passer, and that was concerning to me. I think maybe I had high expectations or higher expectations of Carson Strong than most people, and I was just disappointed in him with his Senior Bowl performance as well as his combine workout.
Bonus quarterback question. What are your expectations for Will Levis next year?
I mean, he's got a decent arm. He can make all the next level passes. I think with quarterbacks, you have to see progress in their game because you don't want to get a quarterback that's coming off a down year. That's always a dangerous thing. So I think that Levis has got a lot of upside. Am I rating him as a top 45 prospect? Not at this point in time. I think he did himself a good thing by going back for another year.
I wanted to ask you about three sort of random players. What kind of a range can we expect for Channing Tindall? He seems to have had a very good draft season. Cam Jurgens, equally, has had a very good draft season. And the running back, Dameon Pierce, who you've been suggesting recently could go higher than maybe some people are projecting.
Yeah, I like Channing Tindall a lot from Georgia. He's a fierce run and chase linebacker. He can make plays up the field. Didn't have the greatest workout, but he plays fast. He shows excellent range. I think he's a guy who's probably going to go in the third round. Jurgens is a guy who I absolutely love. I mean, I watched him as a redshirt freshman in Nebraska. At that point in time, I said, this guy is a next level center. He didn't show a great amount of progress in his game, but I've always said, I feel that Jurgens in day 2 of the draft, whether it be late second round, early third round, is much better value than Tyler Linderbaum in the first round. Jurgens is bigger. Jurgens is a little bit stronger. He is as nasty and he is as effective as a zone blocker in motion. So I expect him to go late 2, early 3. Dameon Pierce, scouts like him a lot more than I do. And I've gotten some third round grades on him. Terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. Hardworking grinder on the inside, shows good vision. I think he's more day 3. I am getting third round grades on him though.
And with the Jets, I think the Seahawks fans are kind of very interested in the Jets, mainly because of the fact that they own Seattle's original first round pick this year. Having been to Jets games, and I was at the Wembley game with the Jets last season as well against the Falcons. I'm very interested in them as well. And you being a Jets fan, Tony, what do you expect they're going to do with their 2 picks? And what is the feeling around the Jets going into this draft?
Well, I mean, the feeling around Jet fans is excitement. Unfortunately, the Jets are always the team that wins March and April. And then when the season comes, it doesn't turn into wins and losses. I think that number one, they have to solve their pass rushing problem. As I said earlier, they haven't had a legit pass rusher since John Abraham, who they drafted in 2000, left via free agency. They've had pass rushes here and there. They haven't had a consistent pass rusher. I think, again, that 4th pick, it is either going to be a guy like Jermaine Johnson or it could be Ike Ekwonu. I mean, I've heard several people in the league tell me that Ekwonu is a guy that is in the conversation for the 4th pick with the 4th pick. If they do take Ekwonu, I think it's probably going to be curtains from Mekhi Becton, who the coaching staff doesn't really seem to like. They like George Fant. And then with that 2nd pick, I can see them taking a receiver, a guy like Garrett Wilson, maybe a Drake London. But if Garrett Wilson is there, again, Joe Douglas, when he came to the Jets, his first draft in 2020, they needed receivers. Here we are 3 drafts later, and he still needs receivers. So I think that 2nd pick will be a receiver if they go pass rusher. Otherwise, if somehow Ahmad Gardner slips past the Seattle Seahawks, I think that would be another consideration.
Couple of final questions. All the talk at the moment is about Deebo Samuel potentially being traded. That's the big news today. A lot of Seahawks fans are wondering what's going to happen with DK Metcalf. He's actually turned up to the initial work with the team this week and has been photographed looking very happy. And there's no suggestion that he's going anywhere right now. But have you got a steer on what might happen with him?
I've heard all along the Seahawks want to extend him. I mean, the Seahawks plan is to, even though the Seahawks are in a bit of a rebuild mode, why trade a guy like DK Metcalf when you know how good he is? So I've been told all along, or I've been led to believe all along, that the plan for the Seahawks is to extend DK Metcalf and keep him a Seattle Seahawk, which I think is the right move.
And the final question, this is a bit of a bugbear personally, Tony, someone who loves watching the combine, all of the whole thing. Is there any hope that the league sorts this event out? Because moving the bench press to the same day as the on-field drills just meant nobody did it. And then you look at they've moved it to prime time, fair enough, but nobody does the short shuttle. Nobody does the 3. You have like sort of 4 guys within a positional do the short shuttle now, and everyone does it at the pro day instead. If the combine's going to be as good as it can be, you kind of feel like, don't you need everybody almost doing everything and getting all the information? And don't the teams want all of that information at the combine rather than having to wait to the pro day? Is there any hope for positive change?
Not if the league is involved. But it's funny you asked me, is the league going to sort out the combine? The league is the problem with the combine. The league is why we're seeing the combine really go from what was a scouting event to a media fest and a fan fest that's over the top. I've been going to the combine since 2001. I've been going to combine workouts since 2001. In 2001, the combine was like a KGB lockdown event. You could not get near it, although I found the way to get into it. And what's happened is you have the Super Bowl, you have the draft. The league is looking as to the combine as their next piece to monetize, to commercialize, and basically keep the momentum going as far as keeping the NFL relevant in the offseason. And it's the league that decided to move the workouts from the morning time to prime time. It was the league that decided to change the bench press to the day that the players are working out, so they have continual coverage, continual network airing of combine workouts throughout the day. So it's really the league that has caused this problem. And now they're talking about moving it potentially from Indianapolis to Los Angeles, to here, to there. That's all the league's doing. And you're right. I mean, teams really don't like what's going on. They're turning it away from what it was originally meant to be, something to test guys medically, because what happened is before there was a combine, the top prospects would travel to all these different teams, and every time they went to a team, they get an x-ray. And I remember Carl Peterson, the former general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, we had a long conversation about this. He said by the time your top prospect would get to the eighth team, or his eighth team visit, he would be glowing from all the x-rays that he took. So he said, hey, listen, let's get this all together. We'll have one x-rays, we'll share the medical information. And that's how the combine blossomed. But now it's just one big media event. I agree with you. Listen, if guys start their workouts at 7 o'clock, by the time they're supposed to do the short shuttle and the 3-cone, it's now 10:30. A couple of years ago, I forget the player, and now I'm going to beat myself up. The kid from Navy who was the receiver and the running back, they wanted him to do pass catching drills, but by that time it was quarter to midnight, because he was in the second group of receivers that didn't start working out till 9 o'clock. So it was ridiculously late at night. So that's part of the reason why you don't see these guys do the short shuttle 3-cone. It's because it's getting late in the day and they sit around late in the night and they sit around all day. To answer your question, I don't think it's going to happen, because the league is going to continue to push to monetize the combine, to commercialize it. And listen, remember where you hear this, what's going to happen next is the agents are going to demand appearance fees for their players to work out at the combine. I mean, as the league monetizes the combine and commercializes it, and here's the receiver 40-yard dash brought to you by Old Spice or something like that, the agents are the fastest guys and the top-rated players will be like, you want my guy to work out? I want $100,000 for him, because you're making all this money from the TV commercials and commercializing it and all the on-air broadcasts. I think that's what's going to happen next. And you may see guys who just say, I'm not going to work out the combine. I'm going to wait till my pro day.
Yeah, for the halcyon days of 2011, when you could just get all the results from a combine. Tony, look, Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure. I always look forward to this so much, having a chance to have a conversation with you. And then just thank you again for the great content year round. And for those of us who just want to geek out on the draft, every single day of the year, you are a priceless resource for us. Where can we find you for the next week? Obviously, Pro Football Network. You've been doing the podcast with the Giants as well, which has been very entertaining. What have you got in store for us over the next 7 days? Yeah,
and those Tuesday night podcasts with Trey Wingo, which have gone very well. We've been on top, but we've been ahead of the curve on a couple of things like the Baker Mayfield story. Yeah. Obviously, we will be doing 2 podcasts with the Giants next week. We'll have our Tuesday show with Trey Wingo, and then we will be doing a live video cast day 1 and day 2 of the drafts from up here in Westchester County, New York. Which will be airing at Pro Football Network. Should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we will get some information before all the other networks get it. But we're not going to be revealing the picks, even though we'll have them first. Perfect. Well, if you want the best information on the draft, Tony is the man to follow for that. And hopefully, Tony, in some of these podcasts, they will introduce you properly with some Led Zeppelin. There you go. You just did it right there, brother.